Good morning. I'd like to welcome you all a little dough. If I could have Jimmy Woodby open us up in a word of prayer.
Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning. Thank you, dear God, for another beautiful day of life, Lord, and blessing us so much in it, Lord, that you've allowed us to come back out to worship again, Lord. We just pray you'll be with us, dear God, that you'll send your Spirit on us, dear God, that we can feel you this morning, Lord, Lord, that you touch each and every one, dear God, that has to speak this morning or sing, Lord, preach, whatever would be the message, dear God. Just send us the message that you would have us to hear. Be with us and bless us throughout this service and this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Once more, good morning. Psalms 25 and 2. It's, O my God, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed. Let not mine enemies triumph at me. It's a good verse to base your mindset and spirit on. Letting your trust fall on God and allowing him to guide and protect you, giving him the power over thy enemies, and also boasting our own selves to not be afraid to show God's light through us as we travel through this world. We often say we trust God or trust in God, but we too often take our own lives in our own hands and make our own blazing paths. We have to make sure ourselves that things get done the way we think they need to be done. Yet with that blazing path, it's hard to control the embers left behind and what they may burn or consume after you've done past. Some may grow cold and may not be an issue, while others, they could find a small patch of dry grass and spark the beginnings of a forest fire. We don't know what our actions may cause to cascade further down the line, as we are human and we do not know everything. Yet we still try to control everything in our presence, because we think we know best. We can't say we trust God if we don't allow him to move around us and listen to him. When he says, don't go here or go do that. And by doing the things we think have to be done, we are saying we don't have faith that God is in control. We don't trust God. It's like treating that coworker that we all know is not, we'll say, well-versed at doing their job. We will skirt around them and avoid everything in our power to go to them. We treat God as that incompetent worker when, God is not that incompetent worker. If God says no, or wait a minute, how about this? It's because there's a reason. Maybe it's trying to avoid you getting into trouble, or maybe it's to avoid hurting someone else, or maybe it's even to better his church on this earth by a testimony. We don't know, as we can't see the world entirely as God can. We need to be able to trust God with a confidence that he will either get it done or instead choose what's best for our lives. And we need to make that decision to be happy in it, as trusting in God is our best option. And we can only build that trust in God by growing closer with God, by allowing God to take control of our situations and giving up that selfish nature to just do it ourselves. We have to allow God to move so we can witness the outcome of his choices and learn to give it more and more over to God, because we see his will is the right choice, and continue to grow closer and growing in faith every time we allow God to work. We say we love God and are close to him, while in reality, Jesus is standing in the corner with circles all over him because we've been poking him with 10-foot poles. Saying, stay over there. I can do it myself. I don't need your help. That's not being close to God. That's letting our wants and desires and our own selfishness distance us from God, but putting us in a position, allowing us to say, we know God, we love God because he's in the same room with us, and we use that as being associated with God because we can still see him in the distance, but we can't quite hear the words over the murmurs of the world around us. We need to be, right by Christ's side so we can hear his voice over the hubba and bubba of the world around us. Took a little inspiration for that by a hymn in the Red Book. I'm going to pick on Mike to see if his choir directory skills are up to the test. 166 in the red emblem. Good job. Get a cookie. I said, good job. You get a cookie. But no, we tend to stand distance. We tend to associate ourselves with God because, we're in a vicinity, but we don't try to get close. We are either too fearful or too selfish to that's not sacrifice, but, take that extra step to grow closer. Maybe it's impatience. I don't know. I am weak, but thou art strong. Jesus, keep me from all wrong. I'll be satisfied as long as I walk close to thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Through this world of toils and snares, if I falter, Lord, who cares? Who with me my burden share? None but thee, dear Lord, none but thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. When my feeble life is old, time for me will be no more. Guide me gently, safely, oh, to thy king ashore, to thy shore. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, my plea. Daily walking close to thee. Let it be, dear Lord, let it be. Keep in mind the baby shower for Kinsey and Cameron. There will be a date for its, what's the word I'm looking for? Not repost. Reschedule, thank you. A reschedule. Getting some ringing. We got trunk retreat on Wednesday the 22nd. Keep that in mind. And if you are wanting to set up, please let Glenna know. We have a few birthdays listed. On the 14th, Glenna Kate's Nave, and on the 17th, Taylor Pinks. No anniversaries listed. One thing about Glenna's birthday is always, I thought of, it marks the date of ladybugs. So look out for your ladybugs. Clean out your corners of your windowsills. They'll be sure to gather there. Any other birthdays or anniversaries not listed? Any announcements that need to come before Sunday school? If nothing else, you are dismissed to your classes.
Well, welcome everybody to the Sunday school class today. Title of the lesson, as you see there, is The Decline and Fall of Israel. We've went through these before in some different books maybe, but this is the coming up to the end, as we'll see in chapter 17. The lesson covers chapters 13 through 17. Obviously, we're not going to get all of that in. What I chose to do was look at some of the final kings and kind of what they did. Focus a little more on chapter 13 and chapter 17, I think. Chapter 13, we see the death of Elisha, and I want to talk about some of his last things that happened to him. And then 17 are try to finish up with that, reasons why that Israel fell. In so many words, that's kind of what that is. As far as chapters 11 and 12, we skipped over those, and it seems that the focus for the quarterly has been on Israel and not so much the happenings in Judah. Kings does take into account of both, and it gets, as you read through it, as you've read already, it gets kind of confusing. Which one are we talking about here? We're talking about Israel, we're talking about Judah. Especially when you have kings with the same name, like Joash. There was a Joash in Judah, and there's a Joash in Israel, best as I can tell, anyway. And Joash is one of the ones that we will discuss today. I'd like to go back just to one verse in last week's lesson, and that gives us a hint of how this is going to go with Israel. We saw the acts of Jehu and how that he destroyed the dynasty of Ahab. God had promised that this was going to happen, and God used Jehu as the vehicle to do that. Especially the kings, and then even the princes or the family. I think there was 70 of them that Jehu just destroyed, and then he became king. So we kind of switched the dynasty from Ahab over to Jehu, and then, as you saw in last week's lesson, he destroyed the house of Baal. He invited all the people in, and then had them killed. So it appears that Jehu is on the right track, and he's going to maybe turn it around for Israel, as he seems, at least initially, to be in tune to what God's will is. But then, as Brother Jack read, we got to verse 31 in chapter 10, and it says this: "But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of God of Israel, in the law of the Lord God of Israel, with all his heart. For he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin." So, as good as it appeared he was going to be, he didn't fully commit to God. In fact, I think it even says something about the gods of gold that he brought up. The golden calf, I think it said. So, and we know that you can't do wrong and get by, even though there's a few things that are good. And Jehu left this legacy, and we'll see today that it just went downhill from there. And as I kind of read that and then read about the next few kings, I think God promised him four generations, 4 or 5. I don't remember which one it was, but and he did before another dynasty there took over. But what is, and I just wrote this question down, what is going to be our legacy as we walk through this life? We see Jehu's, and it wasn't too good. We're in charge of that legacy. I know that we can say that God does all things, but we have our free will to be in charge of the legacy. And is it going to be, our future family going to be walk not in the laws of God as they did here with Jehu, or are we going to try our best to bring them up and teach them, our kids and even our grandkids and great-grandkids, if we live long enough, the ways of God? And it really jumped out at me as I read here about, as we read about what happened. These next 5 chapters details the decline, and there was a lot of chaos, and it just really continues to get worse, as we'll see. Lots of murders. I mean, Jehu, he was seemingly to doing what God had promised, but after that, the kings just kind of started killing each other, and the other one taking over, and it was an awful time to be alive. And of course, it ends in chapter 17 when Assyria officially comes in and carries off the people, or at least takes them over. I think Babylon did more of the carrying away of Judah, but Assyria came in and took over. But let's look here at the kings, and I'll just kind of go down the line with them and talk just a little bit about some of the things that they did. The first one is Jehoahaz, or Jehoaz. I'll call it Jehoaz for short. A little better, a little easier to say. But it says that, you guessed it, did evil in the sight of the Lord, and that's there in the first part of chapter 13. The 23rd year of Joash, the son of Ahaziah, king of Judah. See, here we get the confusion. Jehoaz, the son of Jehu, began to reign over Israel and Samaria, and reigned for 17 years, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and followed the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin, and he departed not therefrom. So we bring up Jeroboam again. Of course, we're going to see Jeroboam 2 come up in this lesson too, but Jeroboam must have really been a bad one, because that's the one that all of these are referred to. The Jeroboam, the sins of Jeroboam his father, which has been maybe 200 or 300 years, I don't know, a few hundred years since Jeroboam, I guess. But it says, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he delivered them into Hazael, the king of Syria, and to the hand of Benhadad, the son of Hazael, in all their days. So Syria was the perpetrator here, the evil one that came in, and you know, when Israel would sin, God would punish them, and I think that's not so unlike things that happen today. There's retribution for sin, and Israel was getting it in the form of their neighbors taking them over, or at least taking over some of the cities. But then we see something that is a little rare in this passage. It says in verse 4, and Jehoaz besought the Lord, and the Lord hearkened unto him, or he heard him. For he saw the oppression of Israel, because the king of Syria oppressed them. And the Lord gave Israel a Savior, so that they went out from under the hand of the Syrians, and the children of Israel dwelt in their tents as before time. So, we have a merciful God, and he showed mercy here on the children of Israel. And it says that they dwelt in tents. And I think this is just a way of saying that there was peace. They were at home. They wasn't out having to fight, but there was a period there of peacetime. And one would think that Jehoaz, he consulted God. He besought God, it says. He asked him, and God listened. And you would think that, boy, Jehoaz, he's on to something here. Maybe he should bring back the worship, and in honor of God, try to get this thing turned around. But in verse 6, nevertheless, and that's a long word there, but it says, let's go back, and nevertheless, they departed not from the sins of the house of Jeroboam, who made Israel to sin, but walked therein. And there remained the grove also in Samaria. Neither did they leave the people of Jehoaz, but 50 horsemen and 10 chariots and 10,000 footmen, for the king of Syria had destroyed them and made them like the dust by the threshing. So let me just look and see here what they did. They departed not, and I think about today, as much as God has blessed us, our people, our nation. sadly, a big chunk of the world has departed not from their sins, and much like Israel here, the decline continues, and the people had an opportunity to turn it around, and they didn't. It says in verse 9 that after 17 years, Jehoahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in Samaria, and Joash, his son, reigned in his stead. Now, it's not only, they call him Joash, but Jehoash, Jehoash. So when you see that, it's the same person. Maybe it was because there was one named Joash over in Judah. I don't know, but these are the same ones. But then it tells us, and he's the next one, his son, Jehoahaz's son, Joash, reigned, and you guessed it, he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, but he walked therein. But it tells us a little bit about Joash and his connection with Elisha. So, with both of these two kings, there's a hint there of seeking God, and Joash, whether he sought God or. But let's go on down to 14. It says, now Elisha was fallen sick of his sickness, whereof he died. So just like each of us, there's a time, and it was Elisha's time, and I just looked a little bit. I don't think the Bible really tells us, but it's suspected that he was about 110 years old. He lived 110 years. And we'll say or so because we don't know for sure. But his time has come, and he's sick, and Joash consults Elisha. I don't know if it was he heard he was sick, if he wanted to see this thing turned around. Don't really know. But I'm going to read this, and it's an interesting take on just kind of the way that Elisha did things. He was a very unique individual, I think, if we studied his life and maybe did things different, we'll just say, and that's just an opinion. I don't say that in the Bible, but in verse 15 it says, and Elisha said unto him, take bow and arrows, and he took unto him bow and arrows, and he said to the king of Israel, put thine hand upon the bow. So you can just see him, he's getting ready to pull the bow back. And he put his hand upon it, and Elisha put his hands upon the king's hands. So I think there's a significance here, is Elisha maybe in his last thing, he was wanting to have that connection or have some kind of influence. And he put his hands, and I thought as I was reading it, maybe Joash didn't know how to pull back a bow and arrow. I don't know, but Elisha puts his hands on the king's hands, and he said in verse 17, open the window eastward, and he opened it. Then Elisha said, shoot, and he shot. And he said, the arrow of the Lord's deliverance, and the arrow of deliverance from Syria, for thou shalt smite the Syrians in Aphek till thou have consumed them. And he said, take the arrows, and he took them, and he said unto the king of Israel, smite unto the ground. And he smote thrice and stayed. Now, it seems like the first time he sent the arrows maybe out through the window, and I guess I think about Elisha here, maybe not able, he's bedridden or at least close to it, and they're in this room, and he says, shoot out through the window, and he's giving some more arrows, and he said, smite them into the ground, or shoot them into the ground. Maybe he did this. I'm not sure how that went, but it says, and this is important, and he smote thrice and stayed. And the man of God was wroth with him, and he said, thou should have smitten 5 or 6 times. thou hast smitten then hast thou smitten Syria until thou hast consumed it. Whereas now thou shalt smite Syria but thrice. Now, I don't know if Joaz had any idea he should have done this, but a commentary suggested that maybe it showed Joash's lack of effort. He didn't do all that he could, and as I thought, I think the commentary even suggested that, when we're doing things for God, probably won't be shooting arrows, but when we're doing things, we need to go at it wholeheartedly, and it's suggested that Joash was not really into this shooting the arrows into the ground, and he either didn't understand or wasn't privy to what Elisha was said here, and sure enough, it tells us on later that he defeated Syria 3 times, but if he would have shot more than that, he may have wiped them out completely. And the man of God was wroth. He was angry with Joaz for not following through. And maybe there was 6 arrows there, and he only pulled back 3, and he said, that's all I want. That's enough. And he should have done them all. Anybody got something in that part? I'll stop there and see if you have a comment of anything. Well, it says here in verse 20 that Elisha died, and they buried him. And the bands of Moabites invaded the land at the coming in of the year. And it came to pass, as they were burying a man, that behold, they spied a band of men, and they cast the man into the sepulchre of Elisha. And when the man was let down and touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and stood upon his feet. So even in death, the power of God is displayed through Elisha, and I think that's saying more about God, but also speaking of Elisha and the power that he had and demonstrated with God. So here are these. Seems like there's some kind of fighting going on, and they needed to bury this guy, and maybe here come the fighters. So they just got to get rid of the body. Let's just throw it in this sepulcher here. Maybe they didn't even know whose it was. But when they dump him in there, he comes back to life, and I can't imagine what the people thought or what the man thought as he's revived. He's dead, and now he comes back to life, and all because of Elisha. But really, it shows God's power. So there's Joash. The chapter 14 starts out with some in Judah, and we'll kind of skip over that. Amaziah, maybe another time we'll do Judah, but we'll go on down to verse 23. See how I'm getting along here. Okay, good. Jeroboam the second, in verse 23, and it tells about him there. It says, in the 15th year of Amaziah, the king over in Judah, Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, began to reign in Samaria, and he reigned 41 years. So Jeroboam too had a longer reign than normal, about the same as David and Solomon. But in verse 24, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. He restored the coast of Israel from entering into Hamath into the sea of the plain, according to the Lord God of Israel, which he spake by the hand of his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, which was of Gath-hepher. And the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, that it was very bitter, for there was not any shut up, nor any left, nor any helper for Israel. And the Lord said that he would blot out the name of Israel from under the heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, the son of Joash. So even as bad as he did evil, God used him, and number one, he gave him a long reign, and number two, he used him to get Israel out of at least some of the oppressions that was going on in Damascus and Syria, and there was a time here, as I was studying this, there was a time that Assyria, I don't know if I've mentioned, they're kind of on the rise here, and ultimately they're going to be the ones that take over Israel. But they're kind of not really going to war, and it's a quiet time for Assyria. So Syria is defeated by Jeroboam II, and it says there that for the Lord saw the affliction of Israel, and it was very bitter, for there were not any shut up, nor any left, nor any helper for Israel. And the Lord said that he would not blot out the name of Israel from under heaven, but he saved them by the hand of Jeroboam, the son of Joash. So, we can say that God used Jeroboam even though he did evil, and he used him for the betterment of the people. Again, it shows the true mercy of God. I think we can see it even in the world that we live in, as bad as things may be. God shows His mercy, and I'm very thankful for that. The next two, Zechariah and Shallum, I think these were the sons, and we're getting close to the end of the dynasty of Jehu. But these two only lasted 6 months and 1 month between them. We're beginning the beginning of the end, I guess you could say, the chaos. It seems that the next one that come along would just kill the one that was in there. So Zechariah and Shallum didn't have much time to do anything. Finally, the next one in power is Menahem, and he was really evil. He continued in the idolatry of Jeroboam. He gave the Assyrian leader money to kind of buy off them and kind of keep him in his position, but he was really paying the Assyrians from the wealth in his own kingdom just to keep him for at least 10 years there. So he gets in bed with Assyria, which ultimately is going to be the end of Israel. And he was, Menahem, I think, was especially evil. I read some there, I think it was chapter 15, I don't remember, where that he cut a baby out of a woman's, just awful things that he did in his, out of her, a pregnant lady, actually, and in his reign of terror, he was awful. Ultimately, he was killed by the next king, Pekahiah, and he only had 2 years, and he was killed also. And again, just the awful chaos that ensued. It seemed Pekah was the next one, Peka. He killed the previous one, and we were getting down toward the end. The last one was, and I'm not going to read all this because it would take too long, Hoshea, a trusted friend of Pekah, by the way, but he killed him anyway. So I think that really puts it in a nutshell what was going on. Hoshea ultimately was taken captive by Assyria and probably tortured and all of that. And at that point, Assyria surrounded Israel, and that was going to be it. And then that gets us on to chapter 17. Anybody got something there you'd like to comment on? I know this is a lot of factual stuff. Try to bring in some things, but a lot of facts today. Somebody got something you'd like to add, though? Well, we'll finish up with Assyria taking over, and that starts there in chapter 17. It mentions the Assyrian, I keep getting those mixed up, the king Shalmaneser, king of Syria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers so the king of Egypt and brought no present to the king of Syria, and he'd done year after year. Therefore the king of Syria shut him up and bound him in prison. So Hoshea was given gifts and doing all this, but he stopped and got in trouble, and then he just bound him in prison. Ultimately, as I said, they were surrounded. Verse 7 begins, and I'm going to read a few of these, tells us why that Israel was taken over. And you know, as I read this, I believe that we'll be able to see some of the very same things that are happening in our world. So just kind of keep that in mind as I read through it. So in verse 7, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt and under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods. That's dangerous when we fear other gods. And they walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel, which they had made. So God had told them to cast out the heathen, but they left them there, and then they followed right after their idol worship. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord. And they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burned incense in all the high places, and did as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord in anger. For they served idols, whereof this Lord had said unto them, Ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets, by all the seers, saying, Turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to the law which I commanded your fathers, which I have sent to you by my servants, the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks like to the neck of their fathers, and that did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, and made them to molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped in all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Now, as I read through that, I know there was a lot of different things. They're walking through the fire that we don't understand, the groves, but it all centered around idol worship. Every bit of this, and when people worship idols, or basically put things before God, the rest of their life, the rest of their things that they do are just full of sin. And this is exactly and this is really a chastisement of what they did, that God has, through the writer of 2 Kings, put in here. And Baal, the two calves, all of these things that they worshipped were totally against God's statutes. And as I said, as you read that, such a connection to what's going on in the world that we live in. And you say, what's next, even for us? To finish up in verse 18, therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. What sad words, that they would be removed out of God's sight, and something that none of us would want to hear. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. And Judah kept the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And the Lord rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of spoilers, until he had cast them out of his sight. For he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Lord, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So Israel was carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. God tried his best to warn them. He sent all the prophets. He done everything that he could, even showing them mercy at times, as we saw through all of these verses that we read. At times showing them mercy and trying to get them to turn, and they just wouldn't. And today, the word's going out. God's message is clear. It's going out to the whole world, and we'll see what the world does with it. As for us, I think we need to, like Joshua said, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And that's what I think that we can do. We can't we can't speak for the rest of the world, but we can take care of our own. So that's it for that. Anybody got something? I know there's some things out there that I've missed.
Just what we think about all this happening, this seems aimed at what we're living in today.
Yeah.
Killing babies.
Yeah.
What can we get into worse? China don't even believe in God. Russia don't.
Right.
I mean, our world is bad shape. They preach, you hear it all the time, preaching, but the right word ain't getting out, I don't think. They can't hit the heart, the target or something.
Yeah. Our world seems about as bad as it was there in Israel.
That's scary to me.
Yeah. Yep. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, for sure. Somebody else.
What happened to start with, though?
Yeah, we know what happened there. That's for sure.
Israel on the hill,
Yeah.
just about destroyed.
Put him out of his sight, he said. And that's really chilling, sad words. Somebody else.
You can see how the moral decay
Yeah.
just kept occurring, they let sin come into their communities and it just overtook them. And, we kind of see that happening in our world today.
God was patient with them, though. I mean, you go back, it mentions here in chapter 17, the last part, about the sins of Jeroboam. As I said, that's many years ago, and many years before, I should say. And God was patient. It's like He's saying, if you'll just a few of you, you'll just do this. But they just couldn't do it. They couldn't. And ultimately, I don't know if hadn't read ahead of how we're going to do this, but Judah got in the same boat. Judah is spared here for some 100 years or so, I think, but they get in the same boat. Anybody else?
I just think about this enough. Idolatry, that's what they got. He had against Israel so badly concerning idolatry. The Lord, we are holding that. We'd rather have a Lord than we would something evil.
Yeah. Yeah, while there's no groves and no statues or anything like that, there's plenty of idols out there for sure. Anybody? Let me dismiss us. Our Father, we thank you for this day, for all your blessings, for all that you do. And Lord, as you warn us of these lessons, just like through these lessons, just like the prophets did Israel, Lord, that the warning is there. Pray that we would strive to do that, would be pleasing to you. Our world would turn from its wicked ways as we see what can happen and what you've done in the past. Lord, just be with us today in our service and help us, Lord, as we just want to lift you up and worship you. Be with all these that's coming in today, these young men. These be with each of them, Lord. I pray they would use you as their guide, Lord. I pray. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.